So we are now live. So we ask that nobody misbehave at this point. Otherwise, we'll have to reprimand. We're just waiting for Councillor Jameson and Councillor Ohlke to join us. They are coming online here slowly but surely. We've got Councillor Maybe back. Councillor Jameson. Now we just need Councillor Ohlke and Councillor Maybe's face. Unless Councillor Maybe, are you not putting your face up on purpose? Oh, there he is.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I had a satellite lag.
So what I might do for the sake of time, while Councillor Ohlke joins us, I'll get through the housekeeping items. So I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:50 p.m. And I'll ask for any declaration of interest. Does anybody have a declaration, any conflicts that they'd like to declare at this point in time? Seeing none, we made a decision to move our in-camera portion of this meeting to the end of the meeting so that we can just continue on with the delegations and presentations that are going to happen next. And we'll move through the staff reports and the rest of the items on the agenda and then move into an in-camera session after the mayor's update, unless I have any objections from council. Seeing none, I will thank TIAP and the Thousand Islands District Chamber of Commerce for joining us this evening, and I will turn the floor over to them. So we have Meg Davros and Catherine Christensen, and I don't see Ms. Kirkland on. Maybe it's because there's more than one screen. Are you all in one group, Meg and Catherine? We can't hear you. We need you to unmute yourself if you wouldn't mind. There we go. Thank you.
No. Sorry, a little bit of a technical difficulty. Yeah, we're going to let Amy Proud in here. Actually, what we're going to do is I'm just going to say a few words, then I'm going to zip out of my chair and let Amy sit here and do the whole presentation with Meg. I just wanted to thank you all for allowing us this opportunity to give you a bit of an update on what we've been doing in tourism. We are still working like crazy. We are putting in crazy hours trying to make sure that we continue to be ready when the doors open and that we keep people, keep the Thousand Islands area top of mind to people as we go forward. Meg Davros is going to do the presentation from TIAP, and Amy will come in after her for the chamber. But as you can see, we work in concert on everything. So go ahead. Will somebody be putting the presentation up? I will be. Okay, off we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Thousand Islands Accommodation Partners, I'm sure many of you are aware of our organization and what we do, but just to have a little recap, our partnership includes 7 major hotels in the Gananoque area. So the Gananoque Inn and Spa, Colonial Resort, Ramada Provincial Inn, Holiday Inn Express, Travelodge, Howard Johnson, Comfort Inn and Suites, and then the 3 major attractions, Thousand Islands Kayaking, Thousand Islands Helicopter Tours, and the Thousand Islands Playhouse. What our strategic focus is for our organization is mainly marketing, product development, partnerships with other organizations in the tourism industry, including the Chamber, RTO9, Destination Ontario, and Destination Canada, and advocacy for our sector. One of the main pieces of our puzzle is travel media. I had the privilege of working with lots of members of the media last summer. We were still able to bring in a bunch of influencers and writers to come and experience the area. So you may have seen a couple of articles floating around on Facebook last year. Those were people that we brought in to come experience the area and share their stories with their audiences. We also focus on travel trade. So just a couple of weeks ago, we were at Virtual Rendezvous Canada, which is an invite-only travel trade show where you get to meet with international and national buyers and media personnel and meet face-to-face, one-on-one, and kind of highlight the area and explain the new things that are going on and try to make sales to bring those people back to the area. International visitation probably won't pick up again until 2022 just because of COVID. But we got to connect with some great local buyers, Canadian companies, and we're hoping to see some good progress from them this year. Typically in a non-COVID year, we would also go to sales missions with Destination Ontario to New York State, Boston, Chicago, and international destinations as well. One of our main pieces of the puzzle is advertising. Just the list here, some examples of things we do, not everything. The images to the right there are a lot of our social media and digital ads that you may see perusing the web. Some of our highlights include the National Post, the Globe and Mail. We had Ottawa Life magazine who did a big article about us last year. So we always have something on the go. Right now we're in a stand and hold, but as soon as we're given the green light, we're going to proceed with some good digital content this year. Some events, we always have event support. This summer we're proud to support Thousand Islands Pride. We have the Canadian or Competitive Sport Fishing League coming in and doing an event this year for a bass fishing tournament. The Thousand Islands Poker Run will be returning in August. And we'll also be having we're working in conjunction with the Lions Club to hopefully bring in a car show for this summer as well. Advocacy is a big part of what we do. So we have memberships with associations such as the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario and the Tourism Association of Canada, as well as the RTO 9, Regional Tourism Organization number 9. And we work hand in hand with them to make sure that our tourism businesses are going to be benefiting, especially during these crazy times. And that's it for me. Absolutely. And so we're going to pass it over to Amy. Just going to pull up her presentation here as well.
Thank you, Meg.
Yeah, no worries.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing us to kind of explain what we do. I'm just going to be here tonight to talk about the Thousand Islands Gananoque Chamber and how we are the destination marketing organization for the town of Gananoque and the Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands. Who are we? The Thousand Islands Gananoque Chamber of Commerce is a registered not-for-profit organization operated by a board of directors who oversee the operations. As the destination marketing, one part of our role is to bring visitors to the region and ensure our members are prosper. The DMO, our role as the destination marketing organization is to promote the region as a whole as a world-class destination. We work with with TIAP, the town and the township, to make sure that we are always on top. Our partners. Partnerships are huge. Here's a list, but I'm just going to add a few more. So we have a lot of little partners within the town and the township, the Lions Club, Sabera, the Laffer and Lyndhurst Revitalization Group. These guys are essential to the way that we market because they do make sure that their regions are noticed. Marketing, so we do our annual visitor guide that is solely supported by the local businesses and distributed throughout Ontario, Quebec, New York State. Obviously right now, due to COVID, we have changed the way that our marketing is done. Last year, we were able to give all of our members free advertising for our guide. And also we put in $50,000, which brought over 27 million impressions and 100,000 clicks to the website. Trade shows. As our partnership with TIAP, we do attend a lot of trade shows together. In 2019 and 2020, before the pandemic, we were in Toronto and Ottawa at the International Trade Show, as well as the agriculture there. So we do support all the events that happen, as do TIAP. And we also need to ensure that we help create the events. So as you have here, we also last year decided that we were going to begin our train on the Festival of Lights, and we included the township in that as well. Advocacy is a very large pillar to the Thousand Islands Gananoque Chamber of Commerce. Right now, our advocacy, our focus is to increase the capacity. So people like Rockport Boat Line, the restaurants can prosper and even open their doors. I don't know if many of you are aware, but right now, all that the Rockport Boat Line, Gan Boat Line can have on their boats is 15 people. So we have taken a huge approach to, in attempt to get the ministry to open that capacity to at least 50% so we can run. Again, these are the businesses that employ our region. And thanks again.
Thank you very much for a very simple and concise presentation with some great detail. Does any of the councillors have any questions for Ms. Davros or Ms. Kirkland? Go ahead, Councillor Foti.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a comment, ladies, more so than a question. To the number of business people I spoke to in this past year, as difficult as it was, they felt that it was integral, the amount of support they got from organizations. As one woman told me, she said, if it wasn't for them, I don't think I would have kept my chin up. So kudos to you for everything you've done this past year and what you're currently doing. And I know we're all handcuffed to some degree as to when we can move a little further and open up, as you alluded to, but I don't think maybe you realize yourselves just how much support you've meant to all the businesses here in Gananoque and the township this past year. So thank you.
Well said, Councillor Foti. Any further comments or questions in regards to the presentation? Seeing none, I'll make the last comment. I had the privilege of seeing your work in motion, so to speak. One of the travel writers or photographers that came to our region and did an amazing sort of collage of photos of Thousand Islands Bridge. He traveled, he's basically a corporate photographer for Mercedes, and he travels all over the world. And his photos of this region were absolutely stunning. And, you know, we get the glory of living here 24/7, 365 days a year. But he shared with the world what we see all the time. And some of us appreciate, some of us don't. And I think to a certain degree, we all take it for granted. But during this lockdown, I'll echo the comments of Councillor Foti. I know that both of you have worked very hard to boost morale, continue to keep our businesses chugging along as best they can, which I know has been a very difficult task. And we're hopeful that the opening that's coming from the province, the loosening of the strings, if you will, for this Friday will be a good indication of how we move forward. And you have our support, and we're hopeful that all of our businesses make it through this very difficult time. So thank you very much, ladies, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move forward in our agenda with the staff reports. So I need a motion, I believe. Thank you. So it's SR-071-21 Administration Report, Disposal of Surplus Assets Policy. So I'll need a mover and a seconder that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council approve bylaw number 21-034, being a bylaw to establish a disposal of surplus assets policy. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Ohlke. and then Councillor Foti. And the motion's on the table. Go ahead. Councillor Ohlke, you wanted to speak to this?
No, just in favor of it.
Okay.
Your worship.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any comments? It's a fairly well-written report and fairly clear. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor, and then Councillor Grow. Oh, I need you to unmute.
Yep.
Sorry.
I'm trying. I'm just wondering where the $50,000 threshold came from.
Go ahead, CIO.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Just looking at our procurement policy, $50,000 seems to be a threshold for where we change how we procure certain things and decisions going to council. So I landed on 50,000. I'm not married to that number. If council is comfortable with another amount, I'm perfectly fine with me.
No,
I just wanted to, I thought 50,000 would be, would represent a significant asset that's being disposed of if it's got a $50,000 value or greater, and it's surplus or end of life, then I think that's something that needs to be seen at council. But that was the thinking behind it.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor. Okay.
Nope.
Councillor, maybe go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. With the asset management, most of the assets will all be put through that process and have an asset tag that will be assigned to it, I'm sure, with a number, so that the disposal of it or its longevity of life will be clarified quite clearly. And I know with provincial asset tagging, it does take some time to get rid of assets. So I hope that our process has a little bit more of a streamlined situation put into it so that when something does become old or obsolete and needs to be taken out of service and put somewhere else, it doesn't become a storeroom item for years on end before it is actually moved out. And that is one of the problems with some of the provincial asset tagging situations. So classification and moving it forward would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Gananoque.
Thank you, Your Worship. That's exactly bang on as a comment, Councillor, maybe. And if you notice through the policy, it ties the Director of Finance in very central to the whole process, so that the Finance Department is kept apprised and has decision-making ability throughout the process. And so it can reflect the disposal of the asset can be reflected in the asset management inventory that we have. So it's crucial that we keep that information, the integrity of the information up to date. And it's also crucial that the Director of Finance have a role in this disposal policy, which under the draft as we have presented, it very much is included.
Okay. Any further questions in regards to the policy that's at hand? Councillor Burrell?
Thank you, Your Worship. Section D of disposition, it said all proceeds of the sales will go to the relevant capital reserve. And it seems on surface that's a good idea, but I would question that. And I would suggest that maybe that should go back into like our general revenue, because our asset management plan will very carefully guide us in where the money needs to go. And I think that adding a disposition of whatever into the reserve fund kind of takes away a little bit from that process, which should be finely tuned in a few years, I guess. But that's just a thought, not married to the idea, but I think that the money should go into general revenue or whatever. Thank you.
Can I ask the Director of Finance to weigh in on that comment as to what other municipalities may or may not do? And if that's, it's a good question, Councillor Burrell. So I want to flesh that out a little bit more. Go ahead, Director.
Through your worship. So typically when we dispose of assets, from my experience, any costs or excuse me, any money that we might receive from the disposition would go back to that replacement reserve fund, basically. So just to feed back into that cycle to try to pay for future assets out of that same stream, or to replace, if it's an older asset and we need to replace it, then those funds would help purchase the new. I agree with Councillor Grell, and ideally if we had a great financial plan and resources, and we already had everything mapped out, then it might make sense to bring those back into general revenue instead. Unfortunately, we're probably going to be faced with an infrastructure deficit. So, and probably, I think, from what I understand anyway, of some of the assets we're looking at getting rid of right now, it's fairly small dollars. It's pretty nominal. So again, council, obviously can choose, and even based on the policy, we could still do something different based on council direction for particular assets if they did receive a significant amount of money on disposal.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. It seems that we've lost Mr. Gorell. He asked the question and then he's gone. I think he got frozen. I think he's going to end up logging back in. Mr. CAO, did you want to add more to that?
Just one clarification. I believe that we have an old fire truck that we are going to be looking to disposing of. Perhaps Deputy Fire Chief Pryor or Acting Fire Chief Pryor could just confirm that.
I just need you on mute there, Mike. There we go. Oh, we can't hear you even though you're unmuted. Your master volume must be muted. There we go.
Okay. Yes, the old training pump, the affectionately referred to as the green machine that was out at the training center for years, it's beyond life capacity for us. So we're looking to start the disposal on that.
Okay. So Councillor Gorell, did you hear the treasurer's response, or did you get frozen there midstream?
I apologize. My computer ran out of power a timely way and shut down. So no, I just failed to hear the finance department.
So the general consensus is that usually it does go into replacement of the new and improved asset. That would be, so if it was a let's say a weed sprayer or something that was out back, and when they dispose of it, it would go back into the reserve to buy the next weed sprayer. But she said that if we chose to make it so it went into general reserves, that's council purview. But usually, because we're in an infrastructure deficit and we will need all the funds we can to replace roads, bridges, culverts, trucks, all of those fun things, we need every dollar to flow in there if possible. So either way works. We've got to put the money over from operating to reserves one way or the other too. So
again, just my thought was keeping the process clean so that when we're budgeting, that we see the budget and we're projecting ahead, and then suddenly an asset gets dumped in there, and therefore I see room to manipulate that maybe wouldn't be as transparent as the original budgeting process. That was my only thought. Not an over concern, just a thought. Thank you.
Director of Finance, you have your hand up.
Hi, through your worship. I think to Councillor Grell's point, once the asset management plan is updated in place, and as we're speaking, hopefully we have efficient processes in place to identify when we're going to be disposing of the assets, it actually might make sense then that we would be actually identifying that through the budget as well. So if we knew, especially if it might have significant dollars attached, we could actually be planning for that in that year as well. Sure. So to your point, I think, yes, if it's significant, it should be planned for in the budget as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Any further comments in regards to the motion that's on the floor? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify. And all those opposed. And it's carried. Thank you. Next motion that's on the floor is in regards to Administration Report 2021 Emergency Management Compliance Requirements and Emergency Management Exercise. So I'll read the motion and then I'll ask for a mover and a seconder. Now, the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council support the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, to advocate for the cancellation of the emergency exercise for 2021 compliance requirement outlined in OREG 380/04S12 (6), being part of the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. And the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council endorse the request for resolution support received from the Township of Elizabethtown, Kittley, and the Town of Prescott regarding the same aforementioned request to AMO. And that Committee of the Whole recommends that Council direct staff to forward a copy of this resolution to the Office of the Premier, the Ministry of the Solicitor General, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and the Office of the Fire Marshal and Emergency Management Ontario, the Township of Elizabethtown, Kittley, the Town of Prescott, in addition to AMO. I need a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Lackey, and then Councillor maybe. Okay, motion is on the floor. Any discussion on this, or is it fairly straightforward? Go ahead, Councillor Jameson, and then Councillor maybe.
Yes, it is. I believe it's very straightforward. You're asking for the cancellation of the exercise as opposed to a delay, is the way I'm reading this. And was there any reason around the cancellation versus a postponement? Or am I just getting too far into the weeds?
Madam Clerk.
Yeah, so we're basically following suit with last year. The 2020 pandemic was declared, and the Fire Marshal's Office canceled the tabletop requirement because the MECG Emergency Control Group gathers on a more regular basis, and that fulfills the requirement under the EMPCA for compliance for 2020 and 2021 respectively. Basically, I'm just following suit with what they proposed last year. And I don't think another tabletop simulation would be any more beneficial than some of the things we're going through right now as we convene as the Municipal Emergency Control Group.
Does that go follow up, Councilor
Thank
Jameson?
you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. That's exactly what I thought. I just want to make sure. No point in simulating something when you're in the middle of the real thing. So, okay, thank you. I support this, of course.
Fair enough. Any further comments or questions? Councillor, maybe you had your hand up, or are you happy with that answer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah. Basically, I'm happy with it because we've actually seen this whole process last year when it was presented to us. So, you know, we've already done the requirements and have it ready. And so, yes, I'm good. Thank you.
Any further comments? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion at hand, please signify. All those opposed, and the motion is carried. Thank you. Next on the table is finance report in regards to the library update. Again, I'll need a mover and a seconder. The Committee of the Whole recommends that Council authorize staff to sign the memorandum of agreement with the Leeds and the Thousand Islands Public Library, LTIPL, for the provision of administration services, and that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council appoint 2 representatives to participate in a working group to explore the feasibility of sharing services with neighboring library systems. Motion, I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Jameson and then Councillor Fody. And it's now on the table. I'll entertain questions, comments, queries. Maybe what I'll do is, before I take comments, I have some clarification request from the chair of the library board. Ms. Lawley's on the line. Thank you for joining us. So one of the recommendations in this motion is that we appoint 2 representatives for working group. Can you be a bit more specific as to what that working group timeframe is going to be and commitment, and like how fast you're hoping them to move or what have you, and the general makeup of said working group? So I know that there's 2 representatives, but can you speak to the other people that might be sitting on the working group, please, and thank you.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The idea has been raised that there should be better cooperation between the neighborhood libraries, which I think is a very good idea. And I have spoken with the chairs of 4 of the neighboring libraries, one of which has shown some interest in this, and that's the Gananoque Public Library. If we're going to have a better working relationship than what we already have, we do have reciprocal borrowing privileges, and we do have some cooperation on programming already and have done for quite a long time. If we're going to have a more specific relationship, then we do have to have some input from the township and from the town, because, you know, as our main funders, we would have to have some. And so what we're looking for is we're looking to have somebody from council or staff work with us. I don't think anything is going to happen in the very near term. As you know, we have just appointed a new CEO. The libraries are hopefully going to be open very slowly starting next week, and there'll be quite a lot going on. So I'm expecting that this will mainly be an activity that we start looking at probably towards the late summer or the fall. So this could be staff members, this could be somebody from council.
Can you speak to who else would be on the working group? So you're talking about 2 recommendations from council, 2 appointments from here, but who else would be on the working group?
Well, the people on the working group would be people from the library board, which would include myself and probably 1 other board member, as well as our library CEO. And we would anticipate that there would be a similar makeup from the town of Gananoque.
Okay, so that gives further framework. I'll entertain questions from the group. I saw Councillor Jameson's hand. Any other hands up? Not at this point. Go ahead, Councillor Jameson.
Just to, I guess what I'm hearing is that there is not at this stage any clear mandate or terms of reference in place that we can review now. And if not, if so, I hope we can see them soon, but if not, can we develop those as quickly as possible? I know there's a lot going on, but there's maybe a window of opportunity we don't want to miss here, because we are certainly looking at fiscal and resource challenges that would really be served by us having these conversations in a reasonable space of time. Thank you, Your Worship.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor Lackey, I'll recognize you.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Had we reached out to Front of Young or Rideau Lakes? Did we get any response from any of our other neighboring municipalities?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Your Worship. I have been in touch over the past year with the board chairs at Brockville Public Library, Rideau Lakes Public Library, Front of Young Public Library, and Gananoque Public Library. And the only group that has given me a positive response as being interested is Gananoque. Brockville is geographically not a realistic partnership. Rideau Lakes is currently not interested in altering their form, and Front of Young was not interested. So we're looking at speaking with. Last summer, the Vice Chair Pierre Mercier and I met with the board chair from Gananoque, Marion McLeod, and their Vice Chair, Chris McDonald, and had quite a very useful and interesting discussion. But we feel that we have to have some input from the town and the township, because this will have, some implications that require cooperation on that level, as well as just between the library boards. And I would, to Councillor Jameson's point, I think we will try and get this going by, as I said, late summer, in the early fall. I don't think it's going to happen over the summer.
Councillor Ohlke, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And through you, for Ms. Lawley, there's been some leaning forward in the saddle, to borrow a phrase from somewhere. Has there been any sub rosa or marginal comments about sharing a CEO. Because quite frankly, neither library system is that large. We have replaced a CEO and Gananoque is looking for one. I wonder if there could be a split responsibility or a union at that level. Thank you.
There is the possibility of a union library, but this requires quite a lot of rearrangement. The Gananoque Library is not currently looking for a new CEO. There is concern that a library of our size, similar to the library at Rideau Lakes, the library in Gananoque is a somewhat smaller population, does require a dedicated CEO. The hours might be slightly different, but it's not quite as simple as just sharing a CEO. That's why I think this requires a lot more looking into and discussion.
Okay, so I would, I haven't seen any other hands go up. Maybe I would make a suggestion that our two council appointees on the library board might be good representatives on this group, unless anyone else on council really wants to jump in and put their hand up on this, because having their working knowledge of our budgeting process and what's going on here is probably makes continuity best, if that works for the rest of the group. I'm looking for consensus. Nobody's, go ahead, Councillor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll give you consensus. Yes, there isn't any other council members other than Councillor Ohlke and Jameson. They're more adverse as to all that's taken place since our term on council than either of these two gentlemen. So they're fully aware of our own expectations as council as a whole. They're fully aware of our budget and where we stand. So they are obviously the two choices. Thank you.
Okay, so because this is not a committee of a council, it's not a formal appointment and we don't have to make a motion here. So it's just suggested. So if you don't show up and you get fired, then you can come back to council and ask for new representatives. So we'll ask that Councillor Jameson and Councillor Ohlke attend as duly understood. And if they have any problems to let us know, but those would be your representatives, Ms. Lawley. Any further comment or question in regards to the administrative services agreement? I think it was also fairly spelled out. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Lackey.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I find it an unusual comment that we couldn't share a CEO for the library when for years we shared a fire chief when we had 4 stations plus Gananoque. I don't know what the words I'm looking for is, but
you don't share the same philosophy.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
You're very welcome. So, Councillor Jameson, I'll recognize you.
Yeah, just because it sounds like we're being press ganged into doing this, Councillor Ohlke and I, and I'm happy to do it. But I take Deputy Mayor's comment seriously, and Councillor Fody's comment about state of budget, the state of our finances, and how committed we are to having a library service, that we should not leave any stone unturned in any conversation about where we need to get to. And we need to get to something before the end of this term. There could be an opportunity, and we should look at that as a positive at this stage, in my view. So I take the points councillors are making back to the table. Thank you.
Any further comments about the motion that's on the floor? Councillor Gorell.
Thank you, Your Worship. With respect to the clause, a transfer of library accounting functions of the township, it said generally it's gone well. Would the Director of Finance care to speak to that? I'd be thrilled if it was going well, and the relationship, I take, between the CEO and the board and finance. I could take that statement at its face value, but I wouldn't mind hearing from finance. Thank you.
Madam Treasurer.
Through you, Your Worship. So I worked really closely with the previous acting CEO over the last several months, and we worked together through year end, and then again now. And unfortunately, because of being so busy with year end, it took me a while to get to actually working in the finance software and actually doing kind of all the setup and the technical accounting entries that needed to be done. So when I say fairly well, part of it's on me because I'm still working through some of those entries and just working actually with the software vendor we use to make sure that the entries are working the way they should and that we've got all the financials set up and balanced appropriately. So everything's been going well. We've been processing payments for the library since I think about the first of the year. And like I said, now we're just getting caught up on some of the other entries and reconciliations, like for their bank accounts. And then I'll be providing regular reporting back to the library CEO and whenever they need it and any other information they need. And I think it's going to work fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments in regards to the motion that's on the floor, I will call the question. All those in favor of the motion at hand, please signify. All those opposed, and the motion's carried. I should have done this before the motion went on the floor, but I would like to recognize that our new library CEO, Dana De Benedette. I apologize. I'm wanting to make sure that I say that. Maybe you could say your name correctly and then we won't forget. Please and thank you.
It's Dana De Benedette.
Thank you very much, Dana, and welcome to the township. We're really happy to have you. We've heard wonderful things and we hope that you feel welcome here and hopefully you have a great time down here in Southern Ontario compared to Dryden, I believe. So welcome. And we look forward to hearing from you in future council meetings. And I believe that Dana is also going to participate in some senior management team meetings and stay connected. So we're really excited about her starting with us. So thank you very much, Ms. Lawley. Thank you, Madam Chair, and our volunteers for the working group. And we expect good things. Thank you. Okay, so next on the, Councillor Jameson, go ahead.
Just a comment and a thanks to Linda Chadwick, who stepped in for us as our interim CEO and did a tremendous job, just a tremendous job. Yeah. So thank you to Linda, much appreciated.
Thank you for that reminder, Mr. Jameson, because that I'm glad that you didn't let that go unnoticed. Ms. Chadwick came in very quickly and hit the ground running, if you will, because the seat used to be hers here. And I know she worked well with the library board chair. Ms. Lawley, you wanted to speak to that?
I would just like to say a thank you to our CAO who joined us in our final selection process and was very, very helpful with producing our employment contract. And we've really appreciated that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we will move on to planning report blanket exemption for township pursuant to Retail Business Holiday Act township-wide and closure of retail businesses on Christmas Day. I'll read the motion and then ask for a mover and a seconder. That the committee of the whole recommends that council grant 3 readings and final passage to bylaw number 21-032, being a bylaw to require retail business establishments to be closed on Christmas Day, and that the committee of the whole recommends that council grant 3 readings and final passage to bylaw number 21-033, being a bylaw to permit an exemption from holiday closures with the exemption of Christmas Day under the Retail Business Holidays Act and the Municipal Act. Mover and a seconder for the motion, please. Councillor Gorell and then Councillor Fody. Any discussion on this motion? I think it's pretty straightforward and I think we've already hashed it out a bit. So seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed? And the motion is carried. Thank you.
Just a comment through you, Your Worship.
Go ahead.
I know that Mr. Lee at the Rockport Lighthouse thanks everyone and the hard work and the efforts put in by the CAO and planning department on this. So on his behalf, thanks to all.
Thank you, Councillor Gorell, and thank you. I believe you were one of the instigators on this too, to help bring it to the forefront and speak to the proprietor there and put us on the path. So thank you for representing your constituents and bringing these important things to light. The next motion that's on the floor is in regards to the road closure request. In order for us to discuss it, we need to put it on the floor and then we'll decide what we're going to do with it going from there. So I'll read the motion and then ask for a mover and a seconder. The committee of the whole recommend that council approve the bylaw attached to this report as Exhibit A to stop up, close, convey at fair market value a portion of the unopened road allowance as concession 9 between lots 12 and 13, and that the applicant provide a reference plan of the lands to be conveyed prepared by a qualified surveyor at their expense, and that the applicant provide the township with a land appraisal for the property to determine the value of land, the land value as established in the appraisal, and any other costs incurred to complete the land transaction are to be paid for by the applicant. Mover and a seconder, please, for this motion. Councillor Jameson and then Councillor Fody. Okay, motion is on the floor, up for discussion. I'll entertain thoughts about this. Before I recognize Councillor Fody and Councillor Gorell, just this popping up in my head, it's difficult when we have these planning applications coming forward and we're doing this virtually. And I appreciate the work that the Director of Planning and the applicants have to go through, because we're flipping between screens. We can't sort of see necessarily, but I also appreciate the thoughts of the council members that brought up things that I might not necessarily have thought of, but also the fact that it's important that we get all sides of the story, both from, hopefully from the adjacent landowners. It was a lot of information to take in tonight. So with that, I'll address Councillor Fody and then Councillor Jameson.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. I'm not opposed per se to this application, but I do feel strongly we don't have enough clarity to move forward with it and passing it either. As I stated earlier, I'm not one that wants to suffocate this township from access to water anywhere in our township. As I also stated earlier, we quite frankly don't have enough water access in this township on most any water point. So I don't want to hold this up on this application, but I feel that we should delay it and give us the time even till next month to pursue the questions we all have, so we have the clarity, so we're making the proper decision. Thank you.
So I'll take Councillor Jameson's comments and then I'll go back to you if you'd like to make a deferral, an official deferral. We can go back to there. Go ahead, Councillor Jameson. And then actually I'll recognize the Director of Planning before we do that.
Okay, I share Councillor Fody's concern about clarity. And I think that's part of the issue here. There is an application before us that deals with some certain specific things, but as a result of that, we're moving off in other directions and residents are approaching us. With respect to the letters we received, I didn't find the tone or the content raising objections per se, but reminding us that we have an obligation to make sure we're very clear on where we're going with it with respect to the official plan and all the other considerations that were raised in these letters. So I appreciate the quality of the letters and understand that it's trying to help us do the right thing first and foremost. But I too would be thinking we'd like to take a little more time and allow the planning department to separate sort of this one aspect, what we're trying to deal with, from the implications or lack thereof, as the case may be. Thank you, Your Worship.
So I'll recognize the Director of Planning and then Councillor Ohlke. Go ahead. Marnie, can you unmute yourself? We can't hear you.
What I said was really good. I just would like to say that I think the public meeting tonight did exactly what a public meeting is supposed to do in terms of hearing from the residents and getting some input and hearing what the questions are around it. So based on the input that we've heard tonight, I think I know where this discussion is going. And all I would ask is that if there is anything specific that came out of that discussion to feed into your discussion right now, if you could let me know where you think additional information would particularly be helpful, so I can make sure that I do have those questions addressed when I bring it forward.
So maybe what I'll do, rather than entertain the deferral at this point, I'll have the questions that need to be further clarified by other councillors. So as they speak, can you write those questions down, or does it need to be part of the public record? I guess it's part of the minutes anyway. And it's recorded, so we can go back and refer to it. So I'll recognize Councillor Ohlke, and then I'll recognize Deputy Mayor Lackey, and then Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Your Worship. And it may be a naive question on my part, but the issue was the construction of something that's in the right of way. Is it possible to arrange some kind of land swap where we move the right of way? And so we retain a right of way and they retain their garage. I know it would involve survey. I know there would be cost, but is there not some kind of compromise along those lines that would be possible? I'm only asking if it's possible, not actually making it as a proposal at this time. Thank you.
Councillor Deputy Mayor Lackey.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I'm just a little concerned that there's already construction equipment on the property. So have we identified what's been done, or if anything's been done? It's not something that's cheap to have a contractor on your property. So I'm guessing they're there to do something.
I believe that's an issue for building and bylaw to deal with. So I imagine that the planner will make those notes accordingly. Councillor Maybe, and then Councillor Grow.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Just like Councillor Ohlke had mentioned about the alignment of the actual road allowance, and I alluded to the height difference through that given zone that it's already portrayed on the map, moving it to the west or east or whatever to give that possible. My secondary question to that, though, is the right-of-way that isn't active that runs east-west, at least I think east-west, that it would connect. And the topographical differences in that piece of property to make it a viable access way, if any other land became severed up in there, which I think is all parkland at this point from what we're hearing, because that's another part of the question is how much parkland is within close proximity to this whole property. And with their potential deeding it to the park, how does that work into that whole plan? So I think we need a larger map to actually indicate all the zones that are park, private, and potentially this becoming a park zone in its future. Thank you.
And I'll just add to Councillor Maybe's comments. When Mr. Kelso spoke about the road allowance that was going, I guess, north-south through his property, and he was talking about a helicopter having to drop you in, I think it's because the east-west road allowance is through the swamp, right? But having said that, I've been to nature conservatories that have boardwalks through wetlands. So it's nothing to say that in the future, maybe the Parks Commission, like Councillor maybe just indicated, if we were to give those road allowances to the park to interconnect trails or what have you, would that be a possibility? And so, like I said earlier, this is exactly why it's important that we have these questions and answers before we make a final decision. And as the planning director said, this is a perfect example of why we have these meetings. So I'm really appreciative of the input for sure. Councillor Garreau.
Thank you, Your Worship. Pretty much everything I was going to ask has been covered. Very specifically, the relationships of the land in Lot 12 and Lot 13, ownership issues and proximity to parkland, such that is this a possible connector? Is it not? It's unknown to us, and that would be important to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Lackey, I'll let you have the last word and then I'll go to Councillor Fody.
Just a question to the Director of Planning. Marnie, are they using an engineer?
Through you, that's been one of the challenges so far, is that there hasn't been any professionals retained in terms of determining specifics of the property. So I think that that's something that we're going to have a discussion with the applicant going forward to try to figure out how far they want to go or are willing to go and how that impacts our review.
Okay. So I think everybody's had a chance to ask their questions or underline the things that they're interested in. Madam Planner, I think you've got the general gist of the additional information required.
Yeah.
So I'll go back to Councillor Fody and your original wish.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So do we need to make a deferral to make this happen?
So you need to move to defer this to a specific time frame. So if it, Madam Planner, before he does that, is a month an additional amount of time, or do you need 2 months to gather the information? I know that you're under the gun for a number of projects right now, so I don't want to saddle you down. Go ahead.
There's a lot of outstanding factors that I need to figure out to be able to even bring some timing to this. So I would say that if it could be deferred until the director has the necessary information to bring a report forward.
Okay.
Because it could be September. I don't know.
Okay. So we're writing up the deferral to be just that, to basically leave it in the director's hand to ascertain the pertinent information to bring it back for further consideration with wholesome details. And I believe the clerk is just printing out that deferral. And then I'll need a seconder for the deferral when it comes to light. And I'll have Deputy Mayor Lackey for that.
Excuse me, just for clarification, Your Worship. So we're looking at the September meeting due to the fact we don't meet in August?
Well, I think it's more the way it's worded. I'll tell you how it's worded so that you know exactly how it is. So the mover would be Councillor Fody and seconded by Deputy Mayor Lackey, that this matter be deferred until the director gathers the necessary information to address council's concern. So it's actually open-ended to give her the leeway to get the information that she needs. If she has what she needs, she can come back in July. It doesn't need to wait till September. So, and it really also depends on the information that is provided by the applicant too, and how quickly and expeditiously that happens. So the deferral was made by Councillor Fody and seconded by Deputy Mayor Lackey to defer until the director gathers the necessary information to address council's concerns. Can I have a yay or nay on the deferral, please? All those in favor of the deferral? All those opposed? And the deferral is carried. So this will be deferred until the director can provide us with further information to address council's concerns. Thank you very much for the excellent discussion this evening. Okay, we're on to unfinished business. Does anybody have unfinished business they'd like to address? Seeing none, I'll move on to other business. Oh, sorry, Councillor Ohlke, unfinished business.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And this may be going back a long, long way, but I wonder if the director, these titles have changed. If Ms. Goodman perhaps could give us an update on perhaps plans for post-COVID development of park structures. I mean, this has all been deferred, and I know we're in a very different financial environment now, but there were people with expectations, and we did have draft structures in mind, and people considered them. I know in Sealy's Bay, there's still some sensitivity about the loss of the teepee. And there was some talk about replacing that structure, and there was some interest in a pavilion of some sort in Furnace Falls Park and in Lyndhurst. And constituents in both those communities point to me the pavilion that was built in Lansdowne with a bit of a wry smile. So if I could have some kind of input to that. And we do have to pick up the threads and move on from where COVID has left us eventually. Thank you.
Ms. Goodman?
Certainly. Thank you. And through you, Madam Chair, actually, it's funny that you should ask Councillor Ohlke. In fact, the Director of Operations and I have spent a great deal of time together over the last week kind of discussing parks projects, parks infrastructure projects, and sustainable parks maintenance, to be specific. We do hope that we can, I know that Dave is working, the Director of Operations is working with his team to see the development and release of the tender documents for the play structure at Centennial Park as was budgeted. But I do anticipate that we will be coming forward with a more detailed plan for this year and something for the 10-year horizon that should support and align with the Director of Finance's asset management program as well. So I know that's not really a detailed answer, Councillor, but please know that we are looking at it and do expect to see some significant park improvements occur through late summer into fall.
Councillor Ohlke, I also just to add to that, we're still awaiting some responses on some large funding that has been applied for as well that might offset the costs of this. And so we're hopeful that we'll get the final okay on that here shortly. Go ahead. Councillor Ohlke, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. And again, on a slightly different note, I have some appreciation from constituents on the real work that's going on Thomas Road. This is down the road from my property, so this is not a conflict of interest. But people who live down that way are most pleased that long-standing issues are not just being patched, they are being fixed. And I believe several of them already made that known, but I'll make it known here as well. Well done, Director Operations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Lackey, go ahead.
Thank you. And through you, Your Worship, to the Director of Operations, David. We had passed a motion quite a while ago to forward to the county and CN to have our railway crossings fixed. Now, I do see they're going ahead with the one in Lansdowne, but there are, what, 4 more? I'm wondering if you have any indication if there's anything that's going to go forward with the rest of them as far as repair.
Director of Operations.
For you, Your Worship. So we were provided a plan from the county which came through CN. They have a plan that what we've seen runs from Kingston right through Leeds and Grenville, and that's the information that they've provided us for the crossings to date. We actually had to go searching for it. The fire chief has a contact with CN, and that was the way that we were able to get this information. We couldn't even get it through the county initially, and then once we started having conversations with them, then we were able to coordinate something that way. So that's what we know right now. I know there's been some stuff on Facebook about the other crossings, and we're at the mercy of CN on this one.
And go ahead, follow up, Deputy Mayor.
Just another question about our gravel road servicing our calcium. Where are we in that schedule?
Through Your Worship, we've been working hard towards our gravel resurfacing. I think that the guys said we have 2 more loads of the 22% to go and 3 more days of 35% to go, and then we will be complete with the gravel or with the calcium program. Gravel resurfacing, we've done all but Lex Road that we're going to do for this year, and we're going to be slightly over budget as it is, but our goal was to touch all of the class 4 roads with the highest amount of traffic. And then we did a rating of all the gravel roads and took the lowest rated gravel roads from there and fit what we could within our budget.
You didn't happen to remember Bullfrog Bay, did you?
Bullfrog Bay.
Bullfrog Bay Road.
I'm not sure if the guys have gotten to that one or not. To be honest with you, I'll have to look at the list.
Pretty sure they haven't.
Thank you very much for the questions. Any further unfinished business before we move on to other business? Councillor Maybe?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I'd like to extend my appreciation to all of the directors that I've touched base with through residential inquiries over the last little while, and the responses that I have gotten, and that they have certainly been looked after in one fashion or another. And I commend all of the staff in the township, directors and everybody else for doing the great work that they're doing during this time and pandemic. And keep up the great work, people. It's great working with this group. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other business? Go ahead, Councillor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, I'm not looking for any consensus here tonight, but I'd like to start the ball rolling before next year's municipal election. A few constituents have brought up the conversation in the past month or so about the uncomfortable position they were put in last year's municipal election of having to put an election sign on the property that they did not want. So we're going to have to look at how we address this, whether we put a stop to all signage unless it's on private property. I mean, I just want all the members of council to put some thought into this process as to how we're going to address this. And I'm not looking for it tonight. As I said, this is just the beginning process here tonight.
Okay, duly noted. Deputy Mayor Lackey.
There we go. Sorry, yeah. Since Councillor Fody brought that up, there was a motion that was passed quite a while ago for a signage bylaw that never, for all signage, for real estate signs, because they just litter. Like my old house out on O'Grady Road, there were signs on the tree when you turn in for real estate agents that hadn't done business. They were out of the business for 3 years. And we passed a bylaw, and I don't know where it ever went. It went to council, it got passed.
Okay, well, we'll ask the clerk to look that up, or she has an answer right now.
I don't believe the actual bylaw ever got passed, but I'll do some research to look into it. Perhaps the Director of Planning and Development could speak to it as well. I think your department was looking at a sign bylaw for a period of time.
Go ahead, Marnie.
There was a motion passed to have staff look into it. We've started down that road a couple of times and then been pulled in other directions. So it is something that we've taken a high level look at based on our reviews so far. I mean, we want it to be a fairly general bylaw, but to address the matters that you've brought up, Deputy Mayor Lackey. So it is something that we have looked at. We just haven't had the opportunity to bring it forward for review at this point.
So we will await that. That was actually probably unfinished business, but that's okay. I'll let it slide this time. So we'll hopefully get that finished here in the near future, so we can tie a bow on that. Any other business? I might just make a comment in regards to the council weekly updates that we receive from the staff here at the municipal office. And just to sort of echo the comments of Councillor Maybe, it's excellent to receive that every Friday afternoon to see what's going on here in the municipal offices and around the municipality in general. I'm very pleased with the communication that's happening out of operations to let people know what road work is being done. I think we're doing a much better job of communicating within the walls with the councillors, but also with the public, and small steps, and we're going to get there, but very positive. And having all those, as much as we still receive some critique with those posts, it is showing that things are actually happening, and Rome was not built in a day. And we have lots of roads. I think it's 363 kilometers of it or something to that effect that we have to address over the next however many years. But that with the asset management plan coming forward and the work that's being done in the operations department with the whole crew, we're getting there faster than maybe we had even hoped. So thank you for your efforts. Seeing no other business, I'll go through quickly my mayor's update. Oh, sorry. Oh, notice of motion. I apologize. I missed that. Any notices of motion? Okay, we'll move on to the mayor's update. It's Economic Development Week, and this is a chance for us to recognize community economic development, including our Economic Development Committee, a very dedicated group of volunteers in our resilient small and micro businesses. Despite the challenges of COVID, we have seen our existing businesses adapt and grow, and new businesses and entrepreneurs become established. United Counties and member municipalities like ours are completing a business survey. We are encouraging businesses to take a moment and complete the survey. It will help inform county and township programs and services that support the local business community. Roads, bridges, ditches, and culverts. We've cut grass at the parks and the cemeteries, buildings that are being maintained. And we have am I reading the wrong week? Oh, Public Works Week. I apologize if I got the wrong week. Is it Economic Development Week or is it Public Works Week? It's not Economic Development Week. Oh dear, I apologize. Either way, we support our businesses one way or the other, whether it's Economic Development Week or not. Thank you very much.
It's whatever you want it to be, Your Worship.
So I will say that the staff are back in the office as well. So we're just gearing up to try to get back in the swing of things before we open the doors. The doors are still locked by appointment only. So we are allowing people into the building on a need be basis, but that the majority of our staff are back in their offices and we're vaccinated and getting back into regular day-to-day operations, if you will. So I appreciate the efforts of those who are making the trek back in and the ones who've been sequestered at home. There's pluses and minuses to both, but the reality is that as much as it's nice to work from home, it's hard being segregated from your peers at work. Sometimes it isn't as easy as one would think. Some people would think that the people who got to work from home got the lucky straw, if you will, but sometimes it's not as it's not as rosy as it can be, because I think the director of planning has been working 12, 13-hour days these days to play catch up. Definitely a lot going on in planning. Okay, so June, I've got the mayor's update for June. I apologize, I had the wrong one in front of me. There's a lot to acknowledge through the month of June. It's Seniors Month, Pride Month, and National Indigenous History Month. And you're encouraged to take a moment and learn about the importance of all of these observances. The Public Works team has been busy opening parks and getting underway with a number of road projects, as I've already mentioned. Just keep following the Facebook to see how things are going. The rail crossing in Lansdowne, very important, as the Deputy Mayor had already previously mentioned. They will be closing the crossing in the village of Lansdowne as of tomorrow morning, and tomorrow morning very early. So you need to plan your route accordingly. So Councillor Fody, your trip to work is going to take a little bit longer. You're going to have to go around. And the splash pad is opening tomorrow. And we also, sorry, just going back, I'd like to thank Mr. Greer, Todd Greer Excavating, for allowing us to park some fire trucks down in his yard to allow us to service our individuals who may need us, hopefully not, if there ever was a need for fire or emergency services during the closure of that road. So we can respond in timely fashion. Splash pad opens tomorrow, and some of staff and council participated in a special meeting of county council to participate about in regards to the community safety and well-being plans. There is a legislative requirement for these plans, and TLTI will be asking council to adopt the plan next week at council. TLTI is also actively working with the St. Lawrence Parks Commission, the Ontario Trails Council, and the neighbors in front of Yonge to foster development of a trails committee. And this is very important. I attended one of the meetings. There was 2 meetings last week. It really comes down to trail maintenance. And the St. Lawrence Parks Commission has not had the budget to, but that there's a lot of people who want to use that trail on a regular basis that are willing to give their time and energy, and in some cases funding to help ensure that all users of the trail can use it cohesively and in peace and harmony at all times of the year. So there was lots of great comments and lots of great input at those meetings. And I'm very hopeful that the St. Lawrence Parks Commission, along with the Ontario Trails Council, can come to some sort of agreement for a trail committee that will help support the goals of the St. Lawrence Parkway Trail. Community consultation for strategic planning is kicking off this month. Please watch for a flurry of information over the coming weeks in our social media as well as emails. A number of trails initiatives have been happening in and around our township. Visit our community calendar to learn how to take part. And the province has announced that we'll be entering step 1 for the roadmap for reopening. And if nothing changes between now and then, our office will reopen to the public on Monday, June the 14th. And that's all I have for my mayor's update. So that was my fault that I had the wrong. Okay, in person. Oh, right. I forgot to bring up council. So our goal would be that we have the option to attend council meeting next Monday night in person, should you wish to. We respect those who may or may not feel comfortable at this point yet, depending on whether you've had your second shot or what have you, personal preference, but we're hoping that we can start to get back to normal and having council meetings in person. So feel free to speak to the clerk, but otherwise we hope that we'll see your shining faces here next Monday night. And that is all I have to say for this evening. The next portion of the meeting is an in-camera meeting, and then we'll take a quick break before we go in camera. So the motion is that committee of the whole adjourns to form an in-camera meeting to consider personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal employees, as it pertains to human resources. And mover and seconder, please. Councillor Fody, Deputy Mayor Lackey. All those in favor, please. All those opposed? And the motion's carried. So we are moving in camera. Gentlemen, I'll give you an 8-minute break. How about that? Or maybe 5. If we can come back, grab yourself a drink, refresh yourself, and then we'll get right back into the in-camera meeting, and that will be with our CAO and Director of Planning. So thank you. Thank you to everybody who's attended this evening. We'll wish you well.
Rude.